Assassination rogues are, quite frankly, deadly assassins. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to succeed in The War Within Season 1 today, and it's going to be very beginner-friendly, while also giving you enough information as a veteran to hit the ground running. Starting off looking at our stat priority, we're just getting straight into it, we've got agility. That is our main stat. We want a higher and higher eye level or item level in order to get more agility and secondary stats. This here is the general stat priority for your secondary stats. However, I do want to say you should only be following this if you're comparing two items of the exact same eye level. And generally, just getting a higher and higher eye level is going to be the main focus. Looking at the secondary stats and what they do for us then, Mastery, it's Potent Assassin, increases the damage done by any poisons and bleeds that you do. Critical Strike, of course, gives us a chance to do more damage. Haste is going to increase our attack speed and energy regeneration, energy being the main resource we're using to cast our abilities as an assassination rogue. And Versatility, which is actually the same for every spec in WoW, it increases damage done, it increases healing done, and it reduces damage taken. Before we move on, let's have a quick look at the set bonus we're getting on our gear this season. And if you don't know what any of this means, don't worry. I'll be explaining it in full shortly when we go through the abilities in rotation. For the 2 set then, when any of your bleeds deal damage, they have a chance to grant you Vile Tincture for 8 seconds, increasing your poison damage by 1% per stack. And that can stack up to 10 times. So basically, whenever our bleeds do damage, we're going to get a chance to increase our poison damage by 1%, and that can stack up and up and up. The 4 set, while you have 5 or more stacks of Vile Tincture, Garret, Rupture, and Crimson Tempest deal more damage. And that's pretty much that for the set bonus this season. So now we're going to look through the utilities and some of the defensives, etc. that we have available to us as a rogue in The War Within. I do want to say these are not all of them. These are the ones that I think are the most important and that you should know about. And once you're more comfortable with your specialization, or just with rogue in general, I would say to just go through the spellbook here and just see what you have available. The same will be with the talents for the rogue side of the talent tree as well, as that is going to be the same on all 3 specs. So, on the left then, we have first, of course, stealth. We as a rogue can go into stealth whenever we want outside of combat. There are a few abilities I'll be showing you in the rotation where we can do it in combat as well, but for now we're sticking to what we can do whenever the hell we want. Now, of course, enemies will not be able to see us when we are in stealth, and we can sneak past most of them. Another interesting ability we have is our kick. This is an interrupt, and a lot of interrupts in the game are actually sometimes called kick because of this spell. It's kind of become the de facto name for interrupts. This is going to interrupt any spellcasting that your enemy is doing, and it's very, very important in both PvP and Mythic Plus. Generally in raiding it's less important, or you'll be using it less, but it is still good to know about. We then have Crimson Vial. Drink an alchemical concoction that heals you for 20% of your maximum health over 4 seconds. This can be seen as a defensive cooldown. However, it is only on a 30-second cooldown. And then we have Cold Blood on a 45-second cooldown. So it's another mini cooldown, if you will. Increases your critical strike chance of your next damaging ability by 100%, meaning you're going to get a guaranteed crit on your next attack. Over on the right then, we've got Evasion, increasing your dodge chance by 100%, and that is on a 2-minute cooldown, so that's a defensive ability. We have Sprint, increasing your movement speed by 100% for 12 seconds. You can also use this while you are stealthed, and it's a really great way to get from A to B in certain fights. We've also then got, speaking of stealth, Cloak of Shadows. This basically provides a moment of magic immunity, instantly removing all harmful spell effects. The cloak lingers, causing you to resist harmful spells for 5 seconds. And lastly, Facility, restoring 100 of your energy. And your mastery is going to be increased by 13.6% for 6 seconds. So energy is the main resource that you can see I've got here as a rogue. And of course, our mastery we spoke about in the stat priority section. And you have got 3 charges of this. Now, like I said, there's loads of other utilities you've got as a rogue. We have things like Shroud of Concealment, where basically you can give your entire party stealth as long as they stay within the shroud. Kidney Shot, Feint, Blind, Cheap Shot, Distract, Sap, Shadow Step, Tricks of the Trade, Pickpocket, Picklock, Kidney Shot. These are all utilities that you have available as a rogue, but as this is a beginner video, I'm not going to overwhelm you with what all of these do. These are the main ones that I would say you should know about. Really, you could argue that Shroud of Concealment is another one. That is another really fantastic one. If I do go into stealth, you can see your allies that are inside this huge circle will also be stealthed for the duration, and it is for 15 seconds. So that's a good way that your whole entire group can get past enemies undetected. But it is on a 6-minute cooldown, so you can't use it over and over in quick succession. Now for the exciting bit, which is, of course, the actual rotation we are going to be playing. Now, first things first is I do want to let you know, as an Assassination rogue in the War Within, we are using Deathstalker as our hero talent for both raiding and also Mythic Plus, which we're going to be going through in detail shortly. But first, let's have a look at our what, when, why on our rotation. What spells are we using? When are we using them? Why the hell are we using them? So what you can see here on the top line is our main rotation, and this little bit here is like the mini opener. So we want to go in from stealth, okay? And that is so that we can use this ability, Ambush. Ambush the target, causing physical damage, and it's going to award 3 combo points. So what are combo points? Well, under here, you can see I've got 300 energy, our main rogue resource, and then I've got 7 combo points. Some abilities will generate combo points, and then some abilities will actually consume a variety of different combo points to then do more damage. So, for example, Ambush is a combo point generator or builder. It's going to award us 3 combo points. And then Slice and Dice here is actually going to use between 1 and 6 combo points to as a finisher, a combo point finisher. Finishing move that consumes combo points to increase attack speed by 50%. If we use 1 combo point, it's going to last for 12 seconds, whereas if we use 6 combo points, it will last for 42 seconds. And that's kind of how our combo point generators and spenders work. So we can only use Ambush from stealth. So we're going to go into combat, and then we're going from stealth, and we're going to use Ambush. Now, what you'll see up here is we have improved Garrett when we go in from stealth. Garrett deals 50% increased damage and has no cooldown. And if we look at the Shrouded Suffocation talent here, you can see that Garrett damage is increased by 20%. Garrett generates 2 additional combo points when used from stealth. An improved Garrett here, Garrett deals 50% increased damage and has no cooldown when used from stealth and for 6 seconds after breaking stealth. So we're going to go in stealth, use Ambush, and then immediately use our improved Garrett to deal more combo points, etc. What does Garrett do? Well, it's going to cause a massive bleed on the target for 18 seconds. And then we're going to immediately use Rupture, and that is another finisher. Rupture, finishing move that tears open the target, dealing bleed damage. And the more combo points we use, the more bleed damage it does. So we're going to go in from stealth, use Ambush, then use Garrett, and then use Rupture to get those 2 bleeds up. And that basically gives us a good starting point for combat with having some bleeds up. Then, after you've done that, we're just going to go on to the main priority. Number 1, keep Slice and Dice up at all times, which is going to double our attack speed, and therefore, of course, we're going to be doing more damage. You can use it really with like 3 or maybe 4 combo points. That's fine, as long as Slice and Dice is up at all times. Keep Garrett up at all times with the bleed, and then keep Rupture's bleed up at all times as well. You can use this with like maximum combo points if you want. After that, we're going to use Echoing Reprimand on cooldown. Deal physical damage to an enemy, extracting their anima to anima charge a combo point for 45 seconds. Can you see here on there, 2 of the points are actually anima charged? Damaging finishing moves that consume the same number of combo points as your anima charge function as if they consumed 7. So basically, if I now use a rupture here at this many combo points, it's actually going to act as if it's used the full amount of combo points. If you're a beginner, I wouldn't worry too much about making sure you're hitting those, but just use them if they're there, and it's going to kind of do well for you, if that makes sense. After that, we're going to use Vanish, and this is a really interesting ability. It's on a 2-minute cooldown, allows you to vanish from sight, entering stealth while in combat. The first 3 seconds after vanishing, damage and harmful effects received will not break stealth. So basically, you can go into stealth in combat and use things like ambush. When you use Vanish, you're going to then want to use Death Mark on a 2-minute cooldown. Carve a Death Mark into the enemy, dealing massive bleed damage over 16 seconds. While marked, your Garrot, Rupture, and lethal poisons applied are duplicated, dealing 100% of normal damage. So go into stealth with Vanish, then use Death Mark, and then use your Garrot and Rupture to basically do the increased damage versions of them. And this is a great way of going back into stealth while in combat. Then we have something called Shiv and Kingsbane. Shiv, attack with your poisoned blades, dealing physical damage, dispelling all enrage effects, and applying a concentrated form of your active non-lethal poison. Your nature and bleed damage done to the target is then increased by 30% for 8 seconds, and it will also award a combo point. You're going to want to use Shiv before you use Kingsbane, but also during it. Kingsbane then, release a lethal poison from your weapons and inject it into your target, dealing damage and over a longer period of time, 14 seconds. Each time you apply a lethal poison to a target affected by Kingsbane damage is increased up to 1,000%. And that was on a 1-minute cooldown and will also apply 1 combo point. And obviously you want to use Shiv in before Kingsbane so that Kingsbane does more damage, because remember, your nature and bleed damage done to the target is increased by 30% when you use Shiv. So hopefully that makes sense. It's actually really logical with Assassination, and I'm a very numbers guy. I love looking into the numbers and, you know, why things do things. So for me, a logical spec like this is so fun. Just FYI, in case you're wondering, really. Then we have Facility, which will restore 100 energy. Mastery is also increased by 13% for 6 seconds. It's on a 1-minute recharge, but you do have 3 charges of it. And you should use your Facility in the Shiv window, but not overcapping on energy. So you've got 300 energy, so you want to make sure you're using this under 200 energy, otherwise you're kind of wasting energy. But do use it in the Shiv increased damage window. And if you're thinking, well, can't I always be using Shiv? Yeah, you can. But remember, it's only increasing damage for 8 seconds, and you can only use it twice on a 30-second recharge. So it won't be up all of the time. Hence why we're using it specifically to maximize its potential with Facility and Kingsbane. After that, so these are your kind of top priorities, you know, keeping up Garrot, keeping up Rupture, using Echoing Reprimand on cooldown, use Vanish and Death Mark and Rupture, etc. Keep up Slice and Dice, and then you're doing the 3 abilities I've just spoken about. After that, your kind of filler combo point generator and finishers is going to be Mutilate and Envenom. Oh, by the way, can you see here it says on Mutilate you need to use daggers? Assassination does use daggers. Annoyingly, I am not wearing daggers. I'm wearing a dagger and an axe just because I'm filming all 3 rogue specs at the moment. So please don't, you know, hung, draw and quarter me for this. So I just forgot to change them. But yes, you do need to be wearing daggers for this. So Mutilate, attack with both weapons, dealing damage, and it awards 2 combo points. And then Envenom is kind of your filler. It's not really a filler, it's just your lowest priority finisher. Finishing move that drives your poisoned blades in deep, dealing instant nature damage and increasing your poison application chance. And it will do more damage for the more points used. One thing you may have seen me speaking about a lot there was about applying poisons. So you do have in your spellbook something here called poisons. You have non-lethal and lethal. So which ones do we want to apply to our weapons? Well, we're going to use deadly poison. You can use 2 here. We're also going to use amplifying poison as well. You'll see up on the buffs here, deadly and amplifying. So deadly, coat your weapons with a lethal poison that lasts an hour. Each strike has a 24% chance to poison the enemy for nature damage over 12 seconds. And then amplifying, coats your weapon with a lethal poison that lasts an hour. Each strike has a chance to poison the enemy, dealing nature damage and applying amplifying poison. Envenom can consume 10 stacks of amplifying poison to deal more damage. And that is your Envenom that we just spoke about. And then you have your non-lethal, which is going to be Anthropic. So what does this do? It coats your weapon with a non-lethal poison. So that's your third poison you're applying. Each strike has a chance of poisoning the enemy, reducing their damage done by 10 seconds. And those are the poisons we are going to be using. Now, if we move over to the AoE rotation for more Mythic Plus, you can see a few things are changing here, but not massively. The main one we're getting is Crimson Tempest, a finishing move that slashes all enemies within 10 yards, causing victims to bleed, lasts longer per combo point, and deals extra damage when multiple enemies are afflicted, increasing by 20% per target, up to 100%. So you can see here, it is, again, a very similar rotation, but again, it is a little bit different. I'm not going to, tell you it's not. Another one I want to tell you about is Indiscriminate Charge. Garrett and Rupture apply to 2 additional nearby enemies when used from stealth and for 6 seconds after. So when you're going in stealth, just an FYI really there with your Garrett and Rupture that they will actually do it to multiple enemies. And that will, of course, be the same when you are going in with your Vanish. So, same opener, but because that talent, it's a bit more AoE. AoE, keep up your Garrett and keep up your Rupture as a top prio. And then we want to maintain Crimson Tempest, okay? Obviously not using it at one combo point like I just did, but maintain that. That rather than slice and dice, we are going to be maintaining Crimson Tempest here. After that, we're going to be using our Mutilate, and that's actually going to be maintaining something called Caustic Splatter or Spatter. Using Mutilate on a target affected by your Rupture and Deadly Poison applies Caustic Spatter for 10 seconds. Caustic Spatter causes 45% of your damage dealt to splash onto nearby enemies. And again, Mutilate is therefore changing into an AoE ability passively. So use it at quite a high priority in AoE and Mythic Plus to actually try and, spread that spatter around. Still using your Echoing Reprimand on cooldown. Still using Vanish and Death Mark, the same as we did before. And use Facility during Vanish for energy, but don't overcap it, like I said in the raid rotation. And then it's pretty much the same with your Shiv and Kingsbane, as I explained before as well. Envenom is still the lower priority finisher, but rather than using Mutilate like we did in the raid rotation at this lower priority, we're now using Fan of Knives. Sprays knives at enemies within 10 yards, dealing damage and applying your active poisons at their normal rate. Deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. So it's basically just another AoE version of actually building combo points. And you do want to make sure that your Envenom is going to be used, by the way, on your Caustic Spatter target. There's also this talent here, Poison Bomb. Envenom has an 8% chance per combo point spent to smash a vial of poison at the target's location, creating a pool of acidic death that deals nature damage over 2 seconds to all enemies within it. So there is a bit more AoE damage going on there as well. But really, those are the only changes you're making for the Mythic Plus rotation. As you can see, it is fairly similar. There's just a few tweaks, etc., that we're making to make it a bit more multiple target friendly. So in this build, we are going with the Deathstalker hero talents. These are already all worked into the rotation I've shown you, of course, but I do just want to go over them. Hero talents are the new hot thing. Let's talk about what they have, etc., and what they do, because they are really interesting. If you are a beginner, again, I would say don't, worry if you are getting a bit overwhelmed by some of these. Again, it is already in the rotation, but again, it is important to know. I feel like I've just contradicted myself, but hopefully you know what I mean. So Ambush from Stealth is going to apply 3 stacks of Deathstalker's Mark to your target. When you spend 5 or more combo points on attacks against a marked target, you consume an application of Deathstalker's Mark, dealing a load of plague damage and increasing the damage of your next ambush or mutilate by 40%. And you may only have one marked target at a time. Going down the left then, your next Fan of Knives, after applying Deathstalker's Mark, deals an additional amount of plague damage and generates an additional 1 combo point. Fatal Intent, your damaging abilities against enemies above 20% health, have a really high chance to actually apply Fatal Intent. When an enemy falls below 20% health, Fatal Intent inflicts plague damage per stack. So, got our first utility choice. I like to go for Bait and Switch. Evasion reduces magical damage and Cloak of Shadows reduces physical damage. Kind of covers us for everything there, rather than just Cloak of Shadows' duration being increased. Hunt Them Down. Auto attacks against marked targets deal more damage. Corrupt the Blood. Rupture deals an additional amount of damage each time as it does damage. Each time it does damage, it does more damage than it did before, and that can stack up to 10 times. And then here, I like to go for Follow the Blood. You can also go for Momentum of Despair. Fan of Knives and Black Powder deal 25% additional damage, while 3 or more enemies are afflicted with Rupture. Single target, you can go for Momentum of Despair. If you have critically struck with Fan of Knives, increase critical strike chance of Fan of Knives and Black Powder by 15% and critical strike damage by 24% for 12 seconds. So it really depends kind of what you're up against and the nuances of the fight and how many enemies you are fighting, in my opinion, for that one. Singular Focus, damage dealt to targets other than your marked target, deals 5% plague damage to your marked target, so putting damage from others onto the marked one. Symbolic Victory, Shiv additionally increases the damage of your next Envenom. After Deathmark expires, gain 20% increased nature damage. And then we've got Shroud of the Night, where basically you're increasing the duration of your Shroud of Concealment, which I think is really, really nice. It doesn't last that long. Shade Walker, each time you consume a stack of Deathstalker's Mark, reduce the cooldown of Shadow Step. Up to you on that one. I just love the cooldown reduction, the duration increase on Shroud of Concealment to make it last longer. I really do love that. Darkest Night is the final one. When you consume the final Deathstalker's Mark from a target or the target dies, you're actually going to gain 40 energy, and your next Envenom cast with maximum combo points is guaranteed to critically hit, and it's going to deal additional 60% damage and apply 3 stacks of Deathstalker's Mark to the target, meaning that you can get those stacks back up really, really quickly, which is quite nice. Again, all of this is already into the rotation that I have shown you, so if you have, found any of this overwhelming, don't worry if you're a beginner, etc. But I think it's good as the hero talents are new to really have a more in-depth look at them. Now looking at the consumables and enchants, etc. we're using as a rogue, the first thing you may notice is that we now, from the weekly Great Vault, have a new way of getting gem sockets for our gear. We can add these with the Nerubian Gem Weaver on our head, waist, and wrist. It's not on this picture. And we can add 2 gem sockets to our neck and both rings now, rather than in the previous expansion where it was just 3 sockets on your neck. And that is of a magnificent jeweler's setting. So you can see 2 on the neck, 2 on the ring, and 2 on the other ring. We're going with Chant of Winged Grace on your cloak enchant, which gives avoidance and removes some fall damage. Crystalline Radiance gives agility. Armored Leech gives leech. Stormbound Armor Kit actually gives agility on the legs. Scout's March gives movement speed. I think it's 250. Mastery on the rings, and then Authority of the Depths on both of your weapons. Authority of the Depths basically means when you're damaging foes, you have a chance to do this big old dark, shadowy damage, and that can deepen, as they like to call it, on the tooltip, which I think that just means it can stack 3 times, which is pretty nice. Then looking at the actual consumables we're using, Alchemical Chaos is the best for DPS, but most people are probably going to go with Versatility for a more rounded out increase in survivability and damage. Alchemical Chaos will rotate your secondary stats. It'll add 7,000 to 1 secondary stat while taking off 600 of the other 2. But what's interesting, and that'll rotate for however long, Tempered Potion will actually add, when you use a potion, that will add to the secondary stats that you're not getting from your flask. So it's really interesting how that works. And it will still do the same thing if you use the Versatility one, just it won't give Versatility, it'll give the others. Healing Potion is called the Algari Healing Potion. Iron Claw Whetstone adds attack power. It's like 500 attack power for an hour on your weapon oil. If you're using an Augment Rune, it's called the Crystallized Augment Rune. And then we're using Culminating Blasphemites on our gems. An Onyx is generally going to be the best one, but you do want to use different coloured gems, apart from Amber, to get the most effect out of the Blasphemite. So basically, you can use a Ruby, Sapphire, an Emerald, and an Onyx. I think that's the right ones. And what it does is, so the Blasphemite gives primary stat, so agility, but it also gives 0.15% critical strike effect increase per different colored gem that you're wearing. Hence why you want to wear an onyx, a sapphire, a ruby, and an emerald, and then the rest of them you can use for whatever you want to get the full effect from your epic gem. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.